starting our meeting off by reading the Dakota Land, Water, and People Acknowledgment. The Metropolitan Council acknowledges that the land we currently call Minnesota, and specifically the 7-county region, is the ancestral homeland of the Dakota Oyate, who are present and active contributors to our thriving region. As part of the Metropolitan Council's commitment to address the unresolved legacy of genocide, dispossession, and settler colonialism, and the fact that government institutions, including the Metropolitan Council, benefited economically, politically, and institutionally after the forcible removal of the Dakota Oyate, the Metropolitan Council is dedicated to instilling land, water, and people commitments in regional policy. These commitments support the Dakota Oyate, the 11 federally recognized tribes in the Minnesota, the Ho-Chunk Nation, and the American Indian communities representing over 150 diverse tribal nations that call the 7-county region home. With that, we will move on. We've got our agenda before us. Everyone's had a chance to review it. Are there any changes, additions, anything we need to talk about? Seeing none then, without objection, that agenda is approved. We also have before us our draft minutes, meeting minutes from December 3rd of the Management Committee. Everyone again has had a chance to get those a review, or sent those out. Any changes, edits, anything we need to know about? All right, then seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve those draft minutes from December 3rd.
So moved.
Moved by Morales, seconded by Jenkins. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no, and that passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our non-consent business items. We've got reports of standing committees. We've got item 2025-320. This is the authorization for internal loan for environmental services capital fund. We're bringing up Mark Thompson, our Director of Treasury, to give us the report and action on this. So welcome, Mark. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee member, our council members. Mark Thompson, I'm the Treasury Director, and yes, I'm here to present business item 2025-320. And this business item requests council approval of an internal loan to cash flow a short-term gap in a bond funding for environmental services capital projects. So when the council issues bonds annually, we base those bonding amounts on our projections of capital expenditures for a period of typically around 12 months. Sometimes actual expenditures happen faster, or funding sources change, or sometimes expenditures are larger than expected, and that results in bond funds being exhausted before the next bond round happens. And that's the case for environmental services at this time. We're expecting the capital fund for environmental services to run out in December. Now, currently we're in the process of issuing new bonds, and the council will be considering bonding resolutions at today's meeting. Pending approval, the new bond funds will be available in February 12th, mid-February. And we do have a policy, a council policy, that allows us to make these short-term loans to fund temporary negative fund balances. The policy does say that if the projected negative balance is greater than 10 million or lasts longer than 3 months, that we must get council approval. That's why we're here. So like I said, we're expecting it to go negative a few million this month, and it's questionable whether it goes more than 10 million, but we're doing this to get ahead of that. So that potential gap, which might happen in January. So the funding of the expenditures in this loan would come from our general cash available on our general investment pool, and the fund will be charged interest on any negative balance until it's paid back. So when the new bonds come in February, we'll reimburse this fund, bring it back to a positive state. The primary driver behind the recent, spend causing environmental services bond fund to go negative there's a couple things really around PFA funding. Environmental services uses bonds and PFA loans, so that PFA is because of some delays in state bonding bills and because of some delays in approval from the federal government for Buy and Build America waivers. Some projects have had to be moved away from PFA because of lack of available funds into bond funding. So there's been more projects using up the bond funds. And that's kind of what's caused this to be expended quicker than we thought, so. So to keep projects moving and avoid some delays, we're, some of those projects were moved from PFA loan funding to bond funding, and hence the negative balance. And so that's why we may need the loan, or we will need the loan, but it may or may not hit the threshold of the policy, but we thought we'd bring this forward to get approval in case it does.
Okay, great, thank
So,
you, Mark.
yeah.
Any questions on this? Councilmember Jenkins?
I'm looking for, what is the amount of the loan?
Well, we don't know what this council member, Madam Chair and council member, we don't know exactly what it's gonna be. It depends on how many invoices come through in the rest of December and January and when those happen. I just looked today before we came down here, it's about, the invoices that have been paid so far in December put us in a negative state of about 2.5 million. So depending on what comes in between now and the bond funding February 12th, that'll determine how far negative we go. And that could be 10 million, 20 million, so we're not sure of the exact amount.
Councilmember
So
Jenkins?
that answers my follow-up question, which was gonna be, is it a lump sum loan and then you use a portion of it, but we're filling the gap, whatever that gap is, not just giving you a bulk amount.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Madam Chair, technically what happens is the fund is allowed to go negative, and we keep paying negative, we keep paying invoices and it just gets negative until we get the new bond funds and that's reimbursed. But they're charged interest on that negative balance as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then, seeing none, we do have a motion before us that the staff recommendation that the Metropolitan Council authorize an internal loan to Environmental Services Capital Fund until 2026 bond funding is available. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Morales, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Osmond, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That passes unanimously, and it will come back in January then to the full council. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, on this,
Yes, no, okay, so
we
we're,
typically don't.
okay, great, we're dealing with it here. I just was wondering about that. Okay, good. All right, we will move on then to our next item, so thank you, Mark, for being here. And this is 2025-321, it's the 2025-2026 salary adjustments for the regional administrator and the general counsel. And we've got Cassandra Tabor, our chief HRO Human Relations Officer. So thank you, Cassandra, for being here.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. Before you today, I am bringing the proposal for the 2026 salary adjustment recommendations for Ryan O'Connor, our regional administrator, and Ann Bloodhart for general counsel. This is supported by Chair Hutchinson under her recommendation. Before you is a recommendation for an implementation of a salary increase in alignment with the non-represented adjustment of 3.3%, including performance compensation for performance scores of meet expectations of higher of 2.5%. And this would be effective December 20th, 2025. If you recall, I was before you earlier this year and we were implementing 2025 changes after the year started. So it feels like I've come back a second time, but that's so we can get in alignment with our language. So section 10.9 of the non-represented plan states that the chair may propose starting salary and salary adjustments for the regional administrator and general counsel. The chair will advise the management committee and obtain its consent before implementing any salaries or adjustments. So I'm before you today to do that in order with our language. So the recommended salary increases are within the 2026 adopted operating budget and are consistent with the parameters established by the management committee for represented bargaining units as well.
Thank you. And just for some history on this, thank you for catching us up on the last go around on this. And there had been historical where the chair would call the management chair, we'd consult, and then it would not come before the body. So now it's coming before the body, and I really appreciate that. I think it's much more transparent so that people know what it would always come before council, I think, but not before the body here in management. So I do appreciate that. Are there any questions? All right. So with that, we've got the proposed action that the Metropolitan Council accept Chair Hutchison's 2026 salary adjustment recommendation for Ryan O'Connor, Regional Administrator, and Ann Wadhart, our General Counsel, and authorize staff to implement salary increases in alignment with the non-represented adjustment of 3.0% or 3%, including performance compensation for performance scores meet expectations or higher to 2.5%, effective December 2020, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Osmond, seconded by Morales. Any further discussion? All right, then, seeing none, again, this will be effective in January 2026, is that correct?
It overlaps in December with our payroll cycle, so it'll be effective December 20th, which is the same for all employees.
Okay, great, just wanted to make sure. All right, any questions, discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no, and that passes unanimously, so thank you very much for being here on that item. And we will now move on to item 2025-305. 303, thank you. And then, is this the same week item since environment? Okay, yeah, just wanted to make sure. All right, so we're gonna turn this one over to Christine Dwyer, Director of Finance and Administration, and Erin, I'm gonna hope I, was this right, Boete, our financial analyst. Please forgive me for incorrectly saying either of your names and correct me if you would. And I'll turn it over to you for our presentation today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having us, Madam Chair and council members, and I appreciate you making time in your schedule as we missed our presentation last week due to the weather. So thank you very much. As she mentioned, my name is Christine Dwyer. I am the Director of Budget and Revenue here for the Environmental Services, and Erin is an analyst on our team and supports the municipal inflow and infiltration grant program. And I think you all should have received the presentation. There we go. So I'd like to present for approval the Municipal Inflow and Infiltration Grant Program. This is an important program to help our communities reduce inflow and infiltration of clean water into our, and including storm water runoff into our sewer systems. Through this program, we have been partnering with on these efforts with our communities for over 15 years. This work ensures that we don't overextend our capacity in our system and also saves us significant resources by not having to treat clean water. As you can see, this program has grown over the past 15 years, and this year represents our largest award to date with $15 million. And we generally receive these funds every other year, and in total we've distributed $51,239,000 through this program. The funding for this program was appropriated through the Minnesota legislature under Minnesota statute 473.5491. To maximize our impact, we propose to allocate the fund into two programs this year. $9 million for our traditional municipal I&I grant program, and then $6 million for a pilot municipal river grant program. The way this grant works is we make grants to cities for capital improvements to reduce I&I into our regional water system. We award up to 50% of eligible I&I mitigation costs and 100% of eligible I&I mitigation costs if the application meets statutory affordability criteria. To be eligible, the city must be designated an excessive I&I contributor and have measured a flow rate within 20% of the allowable council-determined limit. In addition, the work must comply with the state statutes for responsible contractors and state bond finance property requirements, along with our own council guidelines. To qualify for the affordability criteria, the project service area must be located in whole or in part in a census tract where at least 3 of the following criteria or conditions apply. 20% or more of the residents have income below the federal poverty thresholds. The tract has United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Social Vulnerability Index greater than 0.8. The upper limit of the lowest quintile of the household income is less than the state upper limit of the lowest quintile. The housing vacancy rate is greater than the state average, or the percent of the population receiving supplemental nutrition program assistance or SNAP benefits is greater than the state average. So 3 of those 5 conditions must be met in order to satisfy the affordability criteria. And we've also done some additional work to help identify what those criteria are to provide that data to the cities to help them in their planning as well. So there are 81 cities identified eligible to apply for the traditional I&I grant program. As you recall, these cities have been identified by being excessive I&I contributors or have measurable flow rates within 20% of the permitted flow limit. In 2020, we had 58 cities participate, and in 2023, we have 57 cities participate. The average grant received in 2020 was about $86,000. The council guidelines to participate in the grant program are that the cities must be identified as an eligible city, as we already discussed. The eligible work includes construction costs and completed solely to mitigate I&I, so costs related to studies, engineering, planning, and work on private service lines are not eligible. The eligible work must be reasonable, verifiable construction costs, and I'll discuss a little bit more on the next slide, work that's specifically related to the I&I mitigation. The amount eligible for funding is up to 50% of eligible costs and 100% of eligible costs if the affordability criteria is met. And the spending for these projects will occur between January 1, 2026 and December 31st, 2027. So they have 2 years to plan and spend the funds. So when we get into what is eligible work and non-eligible work, so we have a list of the types of work that they can do. And you'll notice on this that some of the percentages are less than 100% because some of the work, while it benefits I&I, it also benefits other things. So that's why you'll see, for the pipe lining and replacement, it's at 50% reimbursement. Flood mitigation, 10%, because there's other benefits to that beyond just the I&I mitigation. So that's why those are adjusted. And of course, as I mentioned, the non-eligible expenses listed there on the right. So the funding allocation to each city is a 2-part process. So first, the first pass, each applicant will receive the lesser of $50,000 or 50% of the submitted eligible costs. If they meet the affordability criteria, they would get either the $50,000, lesser of the $50,000, or 100% of the affordability or of the eligible costs. And then the remaining balance is allocated proportionately to the eligible costs. Any unused funds are redistributed evenly to participants with eligible costs. And final awards are adjusted as needed to ensure that, that no one exceeds the statutory maximum limit. We've included an example here because it's, with all these numbers, when you talk math, and it's sometimes easier just to see it visually and how it works. So And the key word as we go through this, these numbers are eligible. So we talk about that in a lot of different contexts here. So when the cities submit, they can have projects that are in the meet the affordability criteria and some that don't. So we'll see both of those types of projects. And when we look at the type of work, first we're evaluating it against what the reimbursement is for the type of work they get. So what percentage of that work is eligible? And as we mentioned, the flood mitigation comes in at about a 10% eligible. Other types of work comes in at 100% eligible. So first we evaluate it based on the type of work that's done. Then we'll evaluate it based on whether it meets the affordability criteria. So is it eligible for 100% reimbursement or only 50% reimbursement? So that's what we see here. We've highlighted on this example, the ones that meet the affordability criteria in green and the ones that don't in pink. And that carries over to the next slide, which is the kind of the allocation of funds, so the math and how we allocate the funds. So as I mentioned, the first pass is to give each city the lesser of $50,000 or 50% of the eligible cost. And then, of course, if the affordability criteria applies, that would be 100% or the lesser of 100% of the eligible cost or $50,000. So that's our first pass. Everyone gets some allocation through that pass. Then we take whatever dollars are remaining after that first pass and allocate them proportionately. In this example, it's about 12% of their remaining eligible costs that they will be reimbursed for. In 2020, that second pass was the eligible rate was about 13.4%. So these are just kind of sample math just to give you an idea of how that works. So when we go into the pilot river grant program, as I mentioned, we earmarked $6 million for this special pilot program. We've identified 6 eligible cities that have a correlation between high river elevation and high monthly flow rates in order to identify the cities to participate. This grant will comply with all state requirements and council guidelines of the traditional municipal I&I grant that we just reviewed. Applicants that meet the affordability criteria are eligible for 100% reimbursement of eligible work. Otherwise, the 50% limit applies. And if the pilot program is unable to utilize all $6 million, those funds will be transferred into the traditional I&I program and reallocated there. As noted previously, 6 cities were selected to participate in the river grant program. And of course, they're all located on the river. They have, and to meet the criteria to participate, they had were able to show a high correlation between their discharge and high river levels. And when we looked at kind of the maximum award for each community, we evaluated the per capita calculation of prior grant awards to identify cities with the highest burden or needs. So that's how we allocated the dollars within this program. And as I said, if any community or city is not able to maximize their award in this program, we will reallocate the funds back to the traditional I&I program to ensure that they are utilized. And just a quick recap here on the timeline of the program. So earlier this fall, we did have information sessions with our eligible grant recipients in both the traditional program as well as the river grant program to update them on the possibility of this work. We're here to get approval for it to proceed, and once that occurs, we'll release the grant applications on January 1st. The cities will have till January 30th to submit their grant applications. And then, as I mentioned, they have until December 31st, 2027 to complete the work. Once the work is completed, they will submit their documentation for reimbursement, and that is due March 31st, 2028. And grant awards will be issued by May 1st, 2028. And with that, our proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council approve the 2025 Municipal Inflow and Infiltration Grant Program guidelines and authorize the regional administrator to award and execute the grants and grant agreements pursuant to the guidelines outlined in attachments A and B.
Great. Are there any questions? Councilmember Cedarburg.
I'll just make a comment that the funds come from the Clean Water Council and the Clean Water Fund. And so I sit on that program, and this is the one of two requests that the Met Council requests from the Clean Water Fund. So,
Thank you.
No.
no, it doesn't?
Isn't it
Doesn't
bonding?
this come from the Clean Water Fund?
I thought this was
Bonding?
Oh, this is the bonding part, so there's
This
other,
isn't bonding, this is the.
oh, there's residential I and I
from
comes from
the-
the Clean Water Fund, okay.
We could just restate the question.
So
we
there's
get the answer.
residential I and that comes from the Clean Water Fund, not the community, does it? No, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, just let's get an answer to the question.
Yep.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, Ned Smith, Chief Financial Officer, prior to Budget Director. So this I&I comes from the bonding bill.
Yeah.
And the private I&I comes from our pay-as-you-go fund.
Okay,
So that's
so
from,
there's, okay, so I'm confused then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, good question, because I was thinking bonding, but then I wasn't sure myself, so, okay. Bonding, and then
This is
internal, yes,
they go for
Yeah.
private.
yes, okay, great. Are there other questions?
I can add to that.
Yes, oh, did you have an additional answer for that? And then we'll go to Councilmember Jenkins. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, Councilman White, thank you are referring to the water efficiency grant program
There is that. and
that is
then
funded by the
There's two,
Clean Water.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jenkins.
educational for me, so on one of the slides you said there were 81 cities eligible. In the past, we've had 57, 58 communities participate. With monies that are left over, if we will, you said those go back into the fund. Do those enable additional cities to participate, or does it increase the amount of money invested in the initial cities that were selected?
The latter, it increases the amount of the award for the cities that participated, because they submit an application, they're awarded how much that they will get as a minimum, and then depending on whether the work is completed, sometimes work might not get done, or their own
Yeah.
budgets or something, because they have 2 years to get it done, so if at the end of the year they do not get as much work as they had expected done, then, and we don't award them the funds, then we'll reallocate that to the cities that submitted and have eligible work that was completed.
Okay.
So the entire grant award gets allocated after each award.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? I just have one. So I'm kind of surprised that St. Paul doesn't get more money in this situation, just based on the maximum I&I river grant awards, based on per capita and just how much frontage they have along the river. It's not my district, but is it a formula based on, because there meets affordability? I'm just curious why that is.
On the river grant program, it was based on the analysis of the correlation of the river, the levels and the inflow rates. So if there wasn't a really high correlation, that's why they didn't kind of come into those 6
Okay, great.
top communities
Okay.
that were identified.
That helps to answer that. Okay. All right, are there any other questions? All right then, we do have the staff recommendation before us. And by the way, this did not go to the Environment Committee because of a snowstorm.
That's correct.
So normally it would be coming from them to us, and then we'd be moving it, it's a same week item, so it's not a joint item now, but it's a same week item going to council. And just so this committee knows, normally it would management might be the one, but I've offered, and Councilmember Cedarburg's gonna be taking care of this at the council meeting because it's coming out of environment. So we're good on that. Okay, so let me just get back to my original deal. All right, so the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council approve the 2025 Municipal Inflow and Infiltration I&I Grant Program guidelines and authorize the regional administrator to award and execute grants and grant agreements pursuant to the guidelines outlined in the attachments A and B as we've been presented with today. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Morales, seconded, moved by Cedarburg, seconded by Morales, thank you. Any further discussion? I would just say I really appreciate the Met Council's work on this. This is something cities have been working on with metro cities, and maybe the league's been involved in it too. I know there's much more money that is needed for this. I am still just struck by how many downspouts on people's roof lines and elsewhere are going straight into sanitary sewer, so I'm not sure what that's all about either, but especially this riverfront program is super interesting, so thanks to our team that works on this. I'm really pleased to support this and move it forward today. Any further questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? That passes unanimously, so super on all of that.
Thank you.
Yes, and thanks for being with us today, appreciate it. And that brings us to our next portion of the agenda where we have information, and this is super exciting stuff because it's about MVEST, one of my favorite topics. And we've gotten some new information, so we'll bring back up Ned Smith, our Chief Financial Officer, to go through a presentation with us and talk about the state sales tax economic forecast update. So thanks, Ned, for being with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. As the chair said, I'm Ned Smith. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, pinch hitting for Stuart McMullen. He's usually our guru on this, but he is unavailable today. So I'll do my best. He's given me good notes. So just to remind, so these are, today we're going to talk through MVEST and sales tax. These are two of the funding mechanisms we have for transit. And we just released, well, we didn't, the state released the November forecast about 2 days before we approved the budget, and so we didn't have time to really put that into the 26 budget. So I'll just call out now, now that we have these numbers, we're going to incorporate these in the first amendment that we do next year so that our budget reflects the realities of these forecasts. So we'll start with the MVEST, or motor vehicle sales tax. This is a tax on all new and used cars, and the council receives 34.3% of statewide MVEST receipts. Of the MVEST that comes to the council, the suburban transit providers receive 12.2%. And then we set aside 5% of the MVEST funds as a reserve against actuals coming in less than forecast. So you may remember Ed Petrie always saying we only budget 95% of the forecast. That's the flip side, the other way to say it. Over 4 years, this forecast that you see before us represents $144 million less available for the council's transportation programs than the forecast in February. For context, the state fiscal year 26 forecast is about flat to the state fiscal year in 24. This is driven mostly by high interest rates, high degrees of economic uncertainty, and low inventory, all contributing to the lower forecast. And again, we're going to put these amounts into the budget in the next amendment in January, and the need to add additional sales tax revenue to the bus operations budget to make up for the shortfall. Any questions on MVEST?
Are there any questions at this time? All right, we can keep going.
Next, we move on to the Metropolitan Regional Transportation Sales and Use Tax. This was implemented in October of 23. It is a 0.75% tax on purchases in the 7-county region, and it's dedicated to transit programs. 83% of the 0.75% tax comes into the council for our transportation programs. Of the 83%, 5% is statutorily dedicated for grants for active transportation. Active transportation is things like bus lanes, pedestrian lanes, and other things like that. Of the 83%, we also share 4.4% with our suburban transit provider partners. The historical 25-year average of statewide growth in sales tax is 4.6%. But this trend in the out years, especially SFY, state fiscal year 28 and 29, are consistent with other factors in the other macro factors in the state's economic forecast. So generally, we're seeing the forecast is predicting a slowdown across all of Minnesota, not just on our sales tax. And again, these amounts will be incorporated into the 26 budget in the January amendment. Any questions on regional transportation sales and use tax?
Anything on that? All right, seeing none, we can move on.
Okay. The other thing we wanted to share with the committee today is our special transportation services, also known as Metro Mobility, forecast to the state of Minnesota. So beginning in state fiscal year 26, which was actually July 1st of 25, this is now a program forecasted by the state and paid for by the state. The state is committed to providing the funds needed to balance the program's operating and capital budgets. We provide an estimate of the dollar amount needed to the state in each economic forecast, so we will update this again in February. Our November estimate is up about 27.5 million over 4 years, so the cost is going up over 4 years. The total support that we're requesting that will be needed over the 4 years is 521.5 million. The primary drivers in the change in forecast are inflation, both in our contract costs, fuel, as well as pay for the drivers within those contracts. Reduced ridership compared to earlier forecast in Metro Move, and Metro Move brings in federal and state revenue from dollars from the Minnesota Department of Human Services. So it's a rider that's getting reimbursed by another department. So if the ridership goes down, we don't get that reimbursement from them. And we also have slight changes in forecast ridership and contract expenses in other areas. This offset will, though, be reduced a little bit by the support needed for the capital budget. So we had some bus orders that came in late in 23 and 24, so the time to replace them is a few years out. So that dropped our near-term capital costs. In addition, we have a consultant is reviewing, as mandated by law, a consultant is reviewing the council's process for forecasting the Special Transit Services Metro Mobility Program, and will make a report that will be available to us in February. The consultant report was prescribed by the legislature. Our first forecast to the state was in February 24, and we will do the forecast again in February of 25. And with that, Madam Chair, I will take any other questions.
Are there any questions on this? Seeing none? Okay. Thank you, Ned, for presenting this. I always find this very interesting, and we'll have to watch those numbers, and there's a lot going on with whether people are buying cars or not, and interesting stuff. So thank you for bringing it forward today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, there is no other business to come before this body. So with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank everyone.